Hello, we are reading Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, and we are on chapter 22, Jim and the Treasure Hunt. We woke up when the doctor arrived, and I was ashamed to even look at him. Long John Silver was bright and merry. "Good morning, doctor. Come and see your patients are all doing well." While the doctor made his way up the hill, Long John added, "And there is a little stranger who would like to meet you." The doctor stopped right there. "Jim?" he said. "But of course," said Long John. Shocked as he was, the doctor decided to talk to me after he was done with his patients. After attending to their wounds, he asked to speak with me alone, to which the men objected. "Silence!" roared Long John. He turned to the doctor. "Now, sir, we are very grateful for your help. Hawkins, do you promise not to run away?" I did. Long John then asked the doctor to take a walk down the hill and that he would walk me out. Once outside the door, his behavior changed completely, and he looked at the doctor. "Now, doctor, I've saved Jim's life, and I am only here to save mine. I hope you will help me." "Aren't you afraid?" asked the doctor. "Very," admitted John. "I will be hanged for sure, but I hope that you will know that I did some good in saving Jim's life." With that, Long John left, and then the doctor scolded me until he heard my story. "You found the ship? You've been the one saving us all along?" He encouraged me to break my word and come with him, but I didn't do so. I had given an oath. Once back with Long John, the doctor told me that it was best not to find the treasure. "I have to, or else they'll kill me themselves," replied Long John. The doctor said, "Then I warn you to beware of the high winds at sea. Those waves can kill. If we do get out of this alive, I promise to do everything in my power to save you." Long John beamed and thanked the doctor, and the doctor then shook my hand and left. Long John Silver then turned to me and said, "If I've saved your life, you've saved mine. I saw how the doctor asked you to run. By not doing so, you saved my life. I suggest we stick together for the hunt." We had our breakfast after that, where Long John's manner changed again. He became really loud and boastful. I was worried I'd missed the reason behind my friends' doings. Why did they leave the fort and give up the map? What was the warning of the waves about? All these doubts filled my head when we left for the treasure hunt. Each of the pirates was armed with several weapons. Long John led the party with 2 rifles, pistols, a cutlass, and Captain Flint jabbering away. Along the way, the men looked at the chart and argued over which tall tree that mark might be. Each picked his favorite. We walked and we turned left, and we walking up a crest. The jungle became dense. Just then we heard one of the men cry out. We ran to him and saw him staring at the skeleton of a man by a tree. The skeleton was laid out straight, which was very odd. "That's our pointer," said Long John. "That's one of Flint's jokes. Let's move." The men walked more closely and silently, and the skeleton had made all of their spirits drop. Chapter 23, The Fright and the Treasure. The men were exhausted and sat down at the first chance. They began to talk to us about Pirate Flint. He was ugly and he had a violent temper. "You should be glad he's dead then," said Long John. Just then we all heard a voice cry out, "15 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum." "It's Flint! He's back from the dead!" cried the mutineers. "Fetch my sword, Darby," a voice called out again. "Those were his last words," said one of the men there. The pirates stood rooted to the spot, each one crying out that they were afraid of ghosts. One man read from his Bible. Long John lashed out. "That was an echo. Ghosts don't have echoes. That's a living being." This seemed to bring the men back to their senses. Yes, that didn't sound like Flint. It sounded like Ben Gunn. Obviously, no one feared Ben Gunn, even if they thought him dead. The men were back on track and focused on the climb ahead. Long John pulled me by the rope, to which he had tied to my hands. His mood had changed. I could see that the treasure was all that he was focusing on. There was no mercy left in him. He would find the treasure and kill anyone who came in his way. Just then we entered the clearing and we heard George cry out. We ran to him and saw before us a great hole. We could tell that it was not freshly dug. Grass had grown on the caved-in sides. At the bottom were bits of packaging crates from Flint's ship, the Walrus. But we all realized one thing. The loot had been found, and 700 pounds of treasure was gone. The men jumped into the pit to find one single coin. They climbed out and threw murderous glances towards Long John. George cried out, "This wooden-legged fool got us here. Look at him. He knew all along that there was no treasure." Long John spoke up. "Back to seeking the post of captain, George?" They stood across us and we looked toward them, our pistols ready. "What are the odds? 1 cripple and a boy against 5 of us," said George. Just then shots ran out and 2 of the men were hit. George fell into the pit. The doctor, Gray, and Ben joined us with their smoking pistols. We ran quickly through the woods to cut off those men escaping. We found out that they went the wrong way. Ben, in his year-long wanderings, had found the skeleton and the treasure. He had dug up the gold and moved it to his cave 2 months before we had come to the island. We made our way to the boats and paddled by the mouth of Ben's cave, where we saw the squire waving to us. We also saw the Hispaniola floating offshore. We entered the cove, and we saw Captain Smollett lying beside a fire, and also great heaps of gold and treasure. I thought of the many who had died trying to find it and claim it. Never again to see, eh, Jim? Asked the doctor. And we're going to read chapter 24, which is The Last, and the title of the chapter is And Last. The next few days were spent taking the treasure to the Hispaniola. By every evening, a fortune had been stowed aboard, and there were more fortune waiting to be stowed the next day. We loaded Ben's cave with a good stock of food and supplies. As we were leaving, we passed the surviving mutineers. They begged us to take them along, but we decided not to do so. I felt extreme joy in leaving Treasure Island. Long John took a small craft and a sack of treasure, and he made off. We were relieved to see that he was gone. We heard no more of him. I believe he built a new life for himself and was still living with his parrot. When we eventually got home, we all went our separate ways, each with his share of the treasure. And that is the end of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I hope you enjoyed the book.